The Belgian Grand Prix delivered substantial excitement, though most of the action occurred before any actual racing took place. Race control's decision to postpone the start created significant frustration among competitors, particularly Max Verstappen. Multiple teams opted for high downforce configurations anticipating wet weather benefits, yet the governing body's choices ultimately rendered these strategies ineffective. Christian Horner was notably absent from Spa this weekend, spotted elsewhere on horseback rather than trackside. Weather forecasts had consistently predicted precipitation throughout the weekend, with Sunday expected to bear the brunt of the storms. The F3 session became virtually unwatchable due to conditions, while F2 managed to continue despite torrential downpours that nearly triggered a red flag suspension. Red Bull's weekend showed mixed results across their drivers. Yuki Tsunoda experienced frustration after yesterday's promising performance failed to translate. A communication mishap saw his engineer calling him into the pits just as he passed the pit entry, creating an impossible situation. Laurent Mekies had transferred the latest floor upgrade from Max's reserve allocation to Tsunoda's machine, which proved beneficial yesterday but offered no advantage under today's challenging circumstances. Hamilton began the day with a thoughtful gesture, visiting the Mercedes motorhome to speak with Kimi, presumably offering reassurance following their difficult qualifying session. Subsequently, Hamilton accepted a 60-place grid penalty, allowing Mercedes to implement comprehensive changes including suspension modifications, aerodynamic adjustments, and a complete power unit replacement. Since a pit lane start was inevitable after his qualifying mistake and track limits violation, the team maximized this opportunity by changing virtually every component possible. Mercedes engineers fitted Hamilton's car with maximum downforce configurations, anticipating sustained wet conditions that would allow him to slice through the field. His early race performance proved spectacular, carving through positions with remarkable skill during the opening laps. However, when track conditions improved earlier than expected due to the extended delay, this wet weather setup became a significant handicap rather than an advantage. The decision-making process regarding setup choices became complicated by uncertainty over whether race control would actually conduct the race or continue postponing. This game theory element influenced teams' rear wing selections, with Mercedes applying similar high downforce thinking to Antonelli's car. Esteban Ocon's machine featured considerably less downforce compared to Ollie Behrman's setup, leading many to expect Ocon would struggle at the start. An entertaining grid moment occurred when Jos Verstappen encountered Nico Rosberg's aggressive questioning. Rosberg confronted Jos about his previous statements regarding Horner's position within Red Bull, asking directly about calls for the team principal's dismissal. Jos's reluctance to engage and repeated no-comment responses proved quite revealing, suggesting his involvement in previous controversies. Race proceedings faced immediate complications due to wet track conditions. The initial formation lap revealed treacherous circumstances, prompting officials to red flag the session. This decision likely stemmed from knowledge that weather windows would provide racing opportunities within approximately 1 hour, allowing completion without excessive complications. Norris reported severe visibility limitations even behind the safety car, highlighting the primary safety concern. Current aerodynamic regulations, designed to redirect airflow upward rather than directly backward, inadvertently created massive spray clouds during wet conditions. Combined with Pirelli's ineffective wet weather tire compounds, these factors presented significant challenges for proceeding. Driver radio communications revealed varying perspectives on conditions. Leclerc described track conditions as problematic, while Verstappen criticized the overly cautious approach after learning about the suspension, suggesting brief running would clear conditions before heavier precipitation arrived. Spa's unique position creates additional complications for race control decisions. While the circuit remains exceptional for most motorsport categories, Formula One has struggled to produce compelling racing there over the past decade. This stems from F1-specific issues rather than circuit deficiencies, but the outcome remains problematic. Historical incidents at Radilin contribute to heightened caution from officials. Understandably so, yet this creates frustration among fans and drivers who consider the approach excessive. Radio messages from various drivers illustrated the visibility crisis. Tsunoda, among others, reported complete blindness due to spray conditions. Interestingly, experienced drivers like Hamilton, Alonso, and Hülkenberg remained silent during these discussions, possibly reflecting their familiarity with more challenging historical conditions and significantly more dangerous machinery. One motivation for the extended delay involved avoiding the 3-hour race completion window. By not officially starting, race control prevented the countdown timer from beginning, theoretically allowing a later restart without time pressure concerns. Whether this 3-hour limitation serves any meaningful purpose remains questionable, but it influenced today's decisions. Weather forecasting indicated clearing conditions approximately 45 minutes after the original start time, with officials planning accordingly. The frustrating aspect involved continuing delays even after precipitation ceased. Once rainfall stopped and no further weather threatened, racing should have resumed immediately rather than waiting additional minutes for track improvement. These extended delays effectively manipulated race outcomes by invalidating teams' strategic choices. Hamilton and Antonelli, starting from the pit lane with maximum downforce configurations, found their wet weather advantages negated by the artificial delay. Many drivers chose similar approaches, expecting prolonged wet conditions that never materialized due to administrative decisions rather than natural circumstances. Officials also modified formation procedures, extending the minimum gap behind safety cars from 10 car lengths to 20, presumably addressing visibility concerns specific to this circuit. This represented another significant procedural change implemented immediately before racing. When racing finally commenced, sunshine had emerged despite persistent track moisture. A standing start remained feasible rather than the rolling restart ultimately chosen, representing another conservative decision that may have unnecessarily limited racing excitement. Safety car withdrawal occurred around lap 4, with Oscar Piastri immediately seizing the race lead through the opening corners. Norris struggled with rear grip exiting La Source, providing Piastri the opportunity he needed. Piastri's decisive move demonstrated impressive racecraft, recognizing this as his primary chance for victory and executing with maximum commitment up Redolin, while Norris adopted a more cautious approach given his history at that section. Piastri's lower downforce setup compared to Norris proved advantageous regardless of conditions, while his aggressive approach during the crucial opening phase secured track position that would prove decisive. Like his Baku performance, Piastri executed when circumstances demanded maximum commitment. Hamilton's charge through the field provided the race's most compelling action. Starting from 18th position, he rapidly dispatched Sainz and multiple other competitors with spectacular overtaking displays. This period showcased both Hamilton's exceptional wet weather skills and suggested optimism regarding Ferrari's recent upgrades, which appeared more effective than yesterday's performance indicated. Leclerc's defensive work against Verstappen proved impressive, though Max clearly possessed superior pace that proved impossible to deploy effectively due to his high downforce configuration. Spa's overtaking difficulties became evident even with numerous cars out of position, with Hamilton accomplishing most of the successful passing maneuvers during wet conditions thanks to superior grip and braking confidence. Hamilton's pit stop timing proved optimal, stopping for medium compounds just as certain track sections began drying. This created a powerful undercut effect, advancing him significantly through the field during the tyre change phase. Piastri followed one lap later upon recognizing Hamilton's successful strategy. Norris remained out an additional lap, compromising his position but potentially unavoidable given McLaren's pit wall logistics. The team opted for hard compounds for Norris, hoping to gain strategic advantage through tyre longevity. Meanwhile, intense battles developed in the midfield with Verstappen, Ocon, Leclerc and Russell fighting within extremely close margins following Verstappen's slower pit service. Hamilton continued setting fastest laps initially, filtering up to 7th position and appearing capable of further progress. However, the fundamental issue emerged that his high downforce configuration became severely limiting once conditions dried. He suffered significant straight-line speed penalties, losing substantial time to Albon despite following in the slipstream down Blanchimont. Even with superior pace, Spa's overtaking limitations proved insurmountable for Hamilton and many others. The track's characteristics effectively trapped faster cars behind slower machinery, preventing the position changes that pace advantages would normally facilitate. Norris's hard tyre strategy revealed Pirelli's compound selection issues. The weekend featured C4 soft, C3 medium, and C1 hard compounds, with the C1 seemingly intended for one-stop strategies, while C3 encouraged multiple stops. However, the medium compound proved far more durable than expected, with Piastri and numerous others completing approximately 30 laps without significant degradation concerns. This durability seemed excessive for a supposedly softer medium compound, particularly given the substantial performance gap to the hard option. Piastri's tyres appeared serviceable at race conclusion, suggesting Pirelli misjudged compound characteristics for this specific weekend. Recognizing Piastri's successful one-stop approach, Norris pushed desperately to close the gap, driving at absolute maximum attack mode. This created several mistakes, including lockups and a significant moment at Puhan, as he explored the ultimate performance limits. While critics might highlight these errors, excluding the initial start incident, none would have provided sufficient advantage for overtaking given Spa's inherent difficulties and the limited tyre performance differential. Hamilton faced constant fuel-saving instructions, lifting and coasting extensively throughout his stint. This prevented potential progress past Albon and highlighted Ferrari's persistent efficiency challenges. Leclerc, meanwhile, delivered excellent defensive driving to contain Verstappen's superior pace throughout their extended battle. Sainz unfortunately missed optimal pit timing and found himself isolated in strategic no-man's land without sufficient pace to influence proceedings. Piastri received reassuring messages about tyre longevity and successfully managed his compounds to the finish. Despite Norris's aggressive recovery efforts and gap reduction, overtaking Piastri remained impossible. Even if Norris had avoided his late race mistakes while pushing hard, the tyre performance differential proved insufficient for a successful move. Given Hamilton's inability to pass Albon and widespread DRS train formations throughout the field, Piastri's victory appeared secure regardless of other circumstances. The final classification showed Piastri victorious ahead of Norris and Leclerc, extending Piastri's championship advantage to 16 points after losing ground in recent rounds. This represents a solid buffer heading toward the summer break, though Hungarian Grand Prix expectations might favor different competitive patterns. Verstappen's inability to overcome Leclerc limited him to fourth position, while Hamilton's impressive drive unfortunately yielded only sixth due to fuel conservation requirements and aerodynamic limitations behind the Williams. Russell managed fifth despite struggling through middle sector performance, highlighting Mercedes's current incompatibility with Spa's specific demands. Bottas collected valuable points while Gasly claimed the final scoring position, with Lawson's double points finish proving significant given Tsunoda's disappointing result further down the order. Post-race discussions focused heavily on procedural decisions and timing controversies. Verstappen expressed strong opinions about the excessive delays, suggesting racing should have commenced approximately 1 hour earlier than actually occurred. He acknowledged that different strategic choices would have emerged with advanced knowledge of limited wet running, highlighting how administrative decisions influenced competitive outcomes. The championship standings reflect these Belgian Grand Prix results, with significant implications heading toward the summer break and subsequent Hungarian round. The weekend ultimately demonstrated both exceptional individual performances and systemic issues regarding race management under challenging conditions.